Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of PD and PDubs Unscripted here on Monday, April 4th, 2022. PDubs, how's it going?
Real good, PD. Great to be with you again on PD and PDubs Unscripted. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we're really encouraged by our listenership, I guess is the right word. So thank you all for listening to PD and myself just talk on various topics and be encouraged by our guests, and we're encouraged by the results we're seeing.
Yeah, and so, if you like us, share us out so other people can join in on the conversation, hear what P-Dubs and me are talking about. And
yeah, absolutely. And, PD, do we have any sponsors for this particular session of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted? Who do you think we're sponsored by today?
Maybe let's go with the Ultra Guild.
Okay.
Because, there's a lot of Ultra Guild things coming up, getting ready for Holy Week coming up, the palm branches, the Monday, Thursday setup, Good Friday, all the Easter celebrations. So this episode is brought to you by the Ultra Guild.
Take care of your Altar Guild ladies and your Altar Guild gentlemen who help out with those banners. These are people who beautify and glorify your sanctuary. So give them a blessing that they deserve.
So yeah,
thank you, Altar Guild.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to join the Altar Guild,
yes, please see our directoress, Laverne Olaf, over at Emmanuel. Or if you have an Altar Guild at your church, please seek them out. They are lovely, wonderful people.
Yeah, they help us out a lot.
Yes, indeed.
They take care of all of our communion needs, getting us all set up.
They do, and so, yes, I was just talking to our directress about all these crazy ideas that we have on Holy Week, and she was quite happy and pleased to be willing to help us out. So,
awesome.
Shout out to Laverne.
Thank you, Laverne, a fellow White Sox fan, so we got that good connection there.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Ding,
ding, ding.
Yeah, so that always helps, but, in all seriousness, we are grateful for the help that Ultra Guild provides for us here at Emmanuel and all the churches that have Ultra Guilds and all that they do. But, today we want to continue on our topic of faith intersections where we see our faith intersecting in our life. And I don't know about you, but did anybody watch the Oscars this week?
I didn't hear anything about it.
You didn't hear anything about the Oscars?
I must live under a rock.
You must. And let's be honest, we kind of talked about on Friday's episode with Nicole, like how the Oscars were coming up. I'm like, I don't even know, because when you look at the movies up for Best Picture, I maybe saw a couple of them. I didn't see Coda, which won it.
Yeah. Now I want to go see some of these movies.
So did you see, I did see Don't Look Up.
Didn't see it.
That's a Netflix one with Leo and Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay.
Drive My Car.
Is that a Beatles song? Baby, you can drive my car. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, I'm gonna be a...
I don't know. Here, I'm trying to get better.
Baby, I love you.
Yeah, because it was called out Don't Drive My Car.
Okay.
Belfast, which we kind of was mentioned when we did the Stephen Colbert. He mentioned Belfast.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that one looks very intriguing.
Yeah, Dune. I didn't see that. I have it on my to-watch list. I started to try to read the book, but it's kind of a slow book, I have to admit.
Is that a
remake of an 80s
remake?
movie?
Yes. I remember that in the 80s, and big publicity around it, and I don't know. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, King Richard.
Yes, I'm interested in that with the Williams sisters. Yes.
Licorice Pizza, which I actually did watch over the weekend.
How was that?
It was okay.
Okay.
I know it was a coming of age story between a young, kind of high school, late early adulthood, and so not bad. Nightmare Alley, I've heard of it, and it's on, I know, HBO Max. I was thinking maybe at some point watching it. The Power of the Dog.
I heard something that's much better than some Netflix show about dogs that was really popular. I can't remember the name of it. So I think what I'm showing is that I haven't been to the movies since before the pandemic, and I haven't. Well, I don't have HBO.
Well, Don't Look Up only came out on Netflix. That was a Netflix exclusive.
Okay, didn't see that one.
And the last one is another remake, West Side Story.
I heard good things about that one.
I did too.
Yes.
And I think that's on Disney Plus and HBO Max. Mm-hmm. But, you were talking about King Richard, and that kind of was almost a center of a lot of issues with the Oscars. Not necessarily that, but who played King Richard, Richard Williams, and that was Will Smith, who, was born and raised in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground, spent most of my days.
Yeah.
And so him, and then Chris Rock, a well-known comedian. I think of him on SNL. That's mainly where I think of him as SNL.
Right.
I know I've seen him in movies. I just can't think which ones.
And he's done a lot of these award shows. He's always out there, telling jokes and hosting and things like that.
And a lot of those jokes you see, not just Chris Rock, but any of these hosts, whether it's Ricky Gervais, who's done the Oscars, who was in the British office, or whoever it might be, they always tend to poke fun at some of the famous people there.
Yeah, it seems to be that's where the comedy in these shows goes towards, and it's really taking jabs, taking shots.
But it's in good nature, I would say. It's not malicious.
Yeah.
And, that's why they usually pan then to that actor or actress, whoever they're making a comment, and you see them laughing, that's all fun and game.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Dean Martin roasts of days gone by, where they would have a whole dais of people, and there'd be one person that the whole dais would roast on.
Right, and Comedy Central, I think, does some roast.
Yeah, if you think about back in the days, Don Rickles was the king of, really jabbing at people, and, a lot of people are like, I don't like his humor. He's just mean, but you still see a little bit of that kind of comedy, nowadays, especially with Chris Rock. Sometimes he can be abrasive.
And I think that's a lot you see a lot of stand-up comedians. They're kind of on that edge, Dave Chappelle, one who I enjoy. I watched his show when I was in high school in the early 2000s. I watched his Netflix special that came out last year because there's a lot of talks I can't believe where he went on things. And it's always kind of on that edge.
Right.
And it's always that balancing act. And I would say most of them, especially those edgy ones, because, the one that you and me kind of reference a lot is Seinfeld. His isn't maybe that
edgy.
It's not that edgy. It's just observational humor.
Yeah.
But for some people, it is that edgier, and it's kind of can almost offend people, and that's what happened at the Oscars on Sunday night.
Yeah, for sure.
I wasn't watching because I don't really enjoy the Oscars.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Saw then Twitter blow up about this and Facebook, and so Chris Rock made, which I would agree was a poor joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife, about being in G.I. Jane 2 because she had short hair because of her alopecia, which I didn't know she had alopecia. So, Chris Rock, in that sense, I would say, yeah, that's a poor joke when you make somebody medical conditions.
Yeah, and judging from Jada Pinkett Smith's face, she didn't really appreciate it at all.
Right. So I can understand that in that case. If it was just for a choice for a role and nothing because of medical, okay, I can kind of maybe roll with the Chris Rock joke.
Yeah.
But then, initially Will Smith looks like he's laughing at that.
He was enjoying it. Much of the crowd was laughing. He kind of took a posture of leaning back, mouth open, laughing.
And then must have looked at the missus.
Looked at the missus.
And she did not.
She gave him the eye glare.
The stare down.
What are you laughing about?
And then chaos kind of ensued, and he went up on stage and then slapped Chris Rock, sat back down like nothing happened almost, and then shouted some vulgarities about keeping his wife's name out of Chris Rock's mouth. And Chris Rock, he didn't really seem to be fazed by the slap, but you saw him kind of stumble with his words a little bit later when he was like, we're going to give out the best documentary here. When he meant to say, give out the Oscar for the best documentary.
Right. Yeah, that whole when Will Smith started approaching and went up on the stage, there's this moment of what's going on, and even Chris Rock was kind of playing, and he's like, what's this? What's happening here? And then ensues the slap, and boy, I got to tell you, it sounded like a pretty good slap, and Chris took it. He kept his hands behind his back.
He had a good chin.
Yeah.
For those boxing fans.
Yeah, it wasn't a glass jaw.
No.
So, but yeah, he kind of absorbed it and came back and stayed on his feet, and then was just reacting.
Right, and so obviously part of this is the big debate of was it real or was it fake? And we were kind of discussing beforehand our thoughts, and I know I tend to lean towards it being real, but I can understand where it seems to be fake or staged.
Yeah, maybe, friends, you have seen a number of videos PD and I have, and, you get into those super slow-mo ones, and the one thing I noticed was when, Will was going up there, it was already like Chris Rock seemed like he was kind of leaning in, a little bit, but that was just, it wasn't like an obvious thing, but he was just kind of like poised there. There was a posture. And then to me, it was like Will Smith walked up to this line. You could see it on the floor, and it was like, not a marker, but it was like he had a deliberate stop at that line and then paused and then whap. And there, if you look at like the distance between the two of them, there's a foot or so between the two.
So I'm going to use some of my...
Not going toe-to-toe with them.
So what I'm going to use what I learned in Intro to Theater, their blocking was perfect for a setup for a slap.
Very good.
I do remember that term, blocking.
My wife will be happy with you in those terms. So,
well, actually, somebody mentioned her yesterday because we were talking about chapel today with the 8th graders, and I was talking with Diane, our 8th grade teachers, and I said something like, something about the blocking, and she's like, oh, good use. Gwen taught me that word. I'm like, I learned it in Intro to Theater, so I remember one thing from that class.
Yeah, so your point is well taken, and like, it just seemed like a deliberate stop at a marker, and that's all about acting and stage. But obviously there wasn't like a marker other than the way the floor was designed. And, you go slow-mo and it almost looks like, maybe you didn't get him.
Right.
And then ensues the whole conspiracy thing, right? Like, oh, this was a staged thing. And so I think you have a good point. Is like, okay, if it's staged, what was the purpose? Yeah, what was to gain?
Like, what is...
For anyone.
Let's go, Chris Rock. What does he gain? People say, oh, well, his ticket sales on the secondary market are going up.
Yeah.
Well,
does he get any draw from that?
No, it's the person selling it on StubHub or whatever website.
And why would it be secondary market? Because the first is already sold and booked?
like you went to Ticketmaster, you already bought them.
Oh, okay.
Because I would assume his tickets would sell out rather quickly if this didn't happen or not either.
Exactly.
Because he's a well-known comedian.
Yep.
And so then it's be like, I had the ticket I bought off Ticketmaster. Now I'm going to go sell it on StubHub. I can jack up the prices now because that's all the talk.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he doesn't see the benefit of that.
No, he doesn't really. You're right. He doesn't see the benefit of that.
And then for,
all.
like, Will Smith, what benefit does he get when he was... people are like, well, it helped him win the award for Best Actor, which he won like 15, 20 minutes later. It's like...
It's already decided.
Yeah,
the envelope's printed, the card,
Unless they say, like, they told him well in advance, like, hey, we'll let you win the award if you go and do this. But it's like...
Really?
Like, do we have this massive conspiracy going? And it's like, why would he want to put that, like, that stain on his reputation right before one of the biggest, like, moments in his career? And to me, that's where, like, I love the quote that Will Smith shared in his talking to Denzel Washington, because Denzel and Tyler Perry pulled him aside after all this happened. And in his acceptance speech for Best Actor for King Richard, it was interesting. I mean, his whole speech was interesting. I did watch that live because, like, when I heard that he was favored to win, I was like, oh, it's going to happen. I would kind of want to see if it gets addressed or anything. But he goes on in his speech, but Richard Williams... And what I loved, thank you, Denzel Washington, or Denzel, said to me a few minutes ago, he said, at your highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you.
Yeah.
And you see that so often in, like...
Pride comes before the fall.
Right, or like, you set up, like, I think of Josh Hader, I think he's a
closer for the Brewers. Yeah.
It was a couple years ago. He was pitching about to get into the All-Star game for the first time.
And they found some material on him online from when he was 16.
Right. Or like Laramie Tunsil, I think he's a tackle now for the Texans, maybe last I knew. He was drafted by the Dolphins, and he was supposed to be a top 3 pick in the draft. But 10, 15 minutes before the draft, somebody released a video of him smoking marijuana out of a gas mask. And then he dropped to like 15 in the draft. And you might say, well, that's not a big draft, 3 to 15, but it's like, that's a $10, $15 million loss that you're not going to make up. Yes, he's making a ton of money, but that's still $10, $15 million. So it's like, here's these highest moments of these people's life. And even for Will Smith, like, as great of a career as he's had with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Really has.
Think of all the movies like the Bad Boys trilogy, Independence Day, Hitch.
Yeah. I mean, great movies, great shows, great music. I mean, like he's been like iconic.
Right.
So he doesn't need a stunt like this. So like, to the thought of that this was staged, it just doesn't add up.
Right, especially because, like, despite all those great accolades, to win the best actor in the Oscars for a leading actor, that, like, for an actor, there's no higher award.
Yeah, even if you were like, okay, he just won the best actor. And if this was staged, wow, he did a great acting job. When he sat back down and vehemently berated Chris Rock and told him what not to do with expletives.
Right.
So like, if that was acting,
bravo.
That's
why you won the award.
You are the best actor. But yet, again, we're trying to figure out reality here. And like within the confines of Hollywood, here's a question. What is reality in Hollywood? At the break, you've seen all the people come up to Will Smith, hugging him, consoling him. His aides and his people are trying to like scoop this back together because it was a real moment. Right. I mean, Samuel L. and Denzel are talking, and there's another actor there, Tyler Perry, and so like trying to get it all back together to keep the show going, kind of thing.
Right, and it's just like, did they do that all for show then? Like, hey, once this happens, we're gonna get all you guys to surround him, and
right, and even like I brought up, like I haven't heard word one from Chris Rock, and I was listening to someone say, yeah, at the break, all the cameras were on Will and his group, and all the interactions going on there. What happened to Chris? Where did he go? He walked off the stage, never to be seen in the show again. I mean, I didn't watch the show, and that's where like Wanda Sykes came out. Like I think it was today, said that as Chris Rock was walking off stage, he apologized because he bumped into Wanda, and he apologized that he put her and the other ladies who were hosting, taking away from their limelight opportunity, I guess. And so he, like, according to her, apologized to her. And so if it was staged, was he sorry the way it went down? Or was it real? And he was just like, oh, man, this night is not supposed to be focused on me or Will Smith. It's supposed to be about you ladies who are hosting this.
Right, or even
and I'm sorry to take away from you.
Or even was it? I think it was the documentary one that Chris Rock was giving the award for. It was the winner was I don't know if it was the short the feature. The Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. I think it's something about Queens or something in one of the boroughs of New York by Questlove, who's a drummer, I think, and I think is he on one of the late night talk shows?
Yeah, with Jimmy Fallon.
But so like, I'm pretty sure based on what I saw, like Chris Rock and Questlove and all of them are kind of friends. So why would you want to take that like accolade, like that high moment in their life, and put the focus on you?
Exactly. And here's what Sykes said. She says, as soon as I walked up to him, the first thing he said is, I'm so sorry. And Sykes says, I was like, why are you apologizing? He was like, it was supposed to be your night. You and Amy and Regina were doing such a great job. I'm so sorry this is now going to be about this. So if it were a fake thing, an acted out thing, why would he have this interaction here? And why is he like so quiet afterwards? And power to him. He's not pressing charges. Certainly could.
And seemed to just roll with it.
Yep, just kind of moved on.
Which that's kind of seems a very biblical, like turning the other cheek. And
yeah, right.
Not. Like I said, I give him credit for how he's handling this. Like, and as I said earlier, I'm looking at this through the lens that I think this was legit and not staged.
Exactly.
So I give him credit for how he's been handling it, because he could have been a lot worse.
Right.
It doesn't right the wrong of making the joke that
No,
he did.
not at all. Not at all.
And then it's like, then you go back to Will Smith, like his speech and like even the things he said afterwards. It's just really interesting. He seems to be like saying one thing but doing something different. He's like, he says it's like I want to be a vessel for love. It's like, but you like 20 minutes ago, you were not showing a vessel of love. I get you're trying to stand up for your wife,
Right.
and I understand that and protecting because you saw the hurt in her. But your wrong doesn't make or
Two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah.
And it's like, are you really being a vessel for love?
Yeah, and actions speak louder than words here, and so he was trying to at least address it, but yet that whole acceptance speech on love and being a vessel, and like he's overwhelmed by what God is calling him to do. He says, in this time in my life, in this moment, I'm overwhelmed by what God is calling on me to do and be in this world. And so he goes on, I'm called in my life to love people and to protect people and to be a river to my people. And like, that's really high elevation of oneself. It's laudatory, like if you feel a higher calling from God to do these things, but back to Denzel's words, like, watch out, man, you didn't show it.
Right.
And in that moment, he could have apologized to Chris Rock.
And how many people would have witnessed that?
Yeah. But he didn't.
And because
he apologized to the Academy and hoped that they would invite him back.
Right. And I'm just trying to see, because I don't think his apology came out on Monday. It came out yesterday on Tuesday.
Right. Which, yeah, that was directly aimed. He says, I publicly apologized to Chris. And, he talked about violence in all forms is poisonous and destructive. And I'd like to apologize publicly to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. And I was embarrassed that my actions were not indicative of the man that I want to be. Okay, fair, good. If you're feeling led and called by God to be this vessel of love, at least now he's regretting it.
Right. I mean,
so I give him credit for that. Yeah.
And is this too like this whole big deal and kind of I think what you're talking about where he's almost elevating himself when he's talking about to my people, and I don't know exactly what he means by that. But is it that
is that family? Is it the people in his circles, the people he loves, his community that he holds dear? Right.
And it's like, is this because our society and our culture holds up celebrities to be such almost godlike figures? And so then they feel like they can do no wrong, or you see it with Michael Jordan, or any person. You see it with, anybody, like even politicians. That absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And I know I'm just looking at Will Smith's Twitter. There's 62.4 million people that follow him on Twitter.
Wow.
So talking about how you can't almost not have an ego when you're like 62 million people follow me on the social media platform.
Yeah, it's really something, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us, honestly, like to just remember, like who we want to be. Like he said, that this isn't who I want to be. And I think of the Apostle Paul. Why do I do the things that I don't want to do, and I don't do the things that I do want to do? There's that that struggle with our sinful nature, and also just letting your actions speak about the character of who you are. Every one of us needs to be reminded of that. And there's so much opinion going on all over the stratosphere about like what we're talking about, and we're kind of working through it. And so it would be very easy for all of us to kind of stand in our own corners, and point and say, oh, look. And maybe, us as believers in Jesus should take a moment like this and think, okay, if this were me, how would I get through this? Because I know that I've acted in ways that are not loving, and so, the law convicts.
Right.
And so,
So maybe that law did convict him.
I hope.
Because then, I think from what I understand, that Will Smith and Jada are both Scientologists, and that can be a debate for a whole nother day.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about rabbit holes.
Right.
And we could have a week's worth of podcasts on that. And I just afterwards I was drawn, even in my Mondays Are for the Dogs thing, to 1 Corinthians 13. And, what is love? What is not love? And I was like, this is a good reminder, how does love look? How does love act? How does love, in the face of, persecution and things like this? What does God's word call us to do? And so it's patient and kind, doesn't envy or boast, not arrogant or rude, doesn't insist on its own way, not irritable or resentful, doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing, rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And so I think that's a good reminder for us all. Like, I like this, what Paul described these things, because those are daily actionable things that we can keep in our mind.
Right. And even for Will Smith, maybe this is something he can learn and grow from. Because all of us have those moments where our anger gets the best of us.
Right.
And so I'm not trying to be what a horrible person he is.
Right.
But it's just trying to understand the mindset and in a sense putting yourself in his shoes, hearing his wife be offended that way.
Yeah.
But that whole two wrongs don't make a right. And can you learn and grow? Even like Chris Rock. Will he kind of maybe, before he makes a joke, look, is there a medical reason?
Right. Yeah, to do a little homework. But the other thing that, I don't know if we got time just to explore is what you brought up. He gets the award and everybody's, applauding him. And like they have just forgotten what they've just seen.
Right.
And so you're like, that's why I say Hollywood is not reality.
It's a weird place.
Weird. And okay, unless they just have maybe Will turned around to the audience and did a little MIB thing and,
right,
and so they all forgot what just happened.
Right. Because I saw that tweet of him doing that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, I think it's something I always kind of learned to do is separate the person, whatever they do from who they are. In a sense, an athlete like Michael Jordan.
Right.
Greatest basketball player of all time. As a human being,
not the greatest.
Yeah.
So virtuous human being ever. Yeah.
So separating who he is on the court from who he is in a real person, as a person, he's not who I strive to be like.
Yeah.
As a basketball player, you better believe that's who I strive to be like.
And so Will Smith right now could be the GOAT of actors, and he's just received one of the highest prestigious awards. And but yet you got to see a little under the armor of what part of his human being and his psyche is not perfect. None of us are.
Right.
And so it just that kind of amazed me, how people are just willing to, okay, let's clap. And if had that been anybody else out of the audience, it would have ended differently.
Yeah. Because up until this point, I think everybody had a positive view of Will Smith. What a great guy. He's a funny guy, laid back, chill.
Right.
Never would have expected to see this anger unless he's on the basketball courts, because that's where he gets in one little fight.
Well, and I've seen it with not only Will Smith, but with other actors who are getting approached by media, especially at these big awards, and they're coming down the carpet thing, or somebody will come and get too close to them. And even before this went down, it was a few months ago, I saw Will Smith kind of this guy tried to lean in and kiss him on the cheek, and he pushes him away. He's like, get away from me, man, and gets almost punches him, but just
But you can all understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you talk a lot about your personal bubble and space like that. So whoever this person was, broke that barrier. And so you're they're facing that all the time. That is their reality and the Hollywood reality.
But
holding up quotes.
And it's one of those, like, it's almost like, you know what? If you pay me the amount of money that you pay them to do that, it's no different like athletes. You see the same thing with athletes, like, oh, I don't want to be bothered,
Mm-hmm. You got to come to expect some of
this. It's like,
this.
hey, you're making $30 million to play a game in 1 year.
Yeah.
I understand that if it's like 4 a.m. and you're at the airport, maybe leave the person alone.
Mm-hmm. And I think, did Will address that at all? And like, this is part of our existence. And
he kind of did that with his apology, saying, hey, jokes at my expense are part of the job.
Yeah.
Which he gets at. I'm like, I'm sure he's probably made jokes at other people's expenses. Mm-hmm. But the difference was Jada's medical condition.
Right.
Which is what set it off. And like, as we wrap up, I think really the key here, or like the thing I keep going back to, is that whole Denzel quote of just, it's at your highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you. And I think that's true for any of us.
Yep.
That when we get that puffy chest, be aware, kind of like what God told Cain. Hey, sin is crouching at your door. Don't let it in.
Yeah. Yeah, if I have not love, I'm like a resounding gong.
Ooh.
Like, there you go, Apostle Paul, right back at you.
So
Word.
That's a mic drop moment right there. I don't know where to go from there, but just, so hope everybody kind of enjoyed this conversation. And like I said, however you feel about this, like whether it's real or fake, that's fine. I'm not going to make judgments one way or the other.
Yeah.
It makes no difference in life.
Right.
But it's just obviously it's a huge cultural moment that people will remember from now until probably end of time, where like at least like this generation, because it was two well-known people that you've never seen that at an award such as that.
And wide open in the public. And boy, I would have loved to seen like social media stats of like how quickly this just went off like wildfire,
Right.
Whew.
So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday. Thank you and God bless.